Scene opens, energetic and engaging music fades slightly into the background. Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're journeying back to the tumultuous early 20th century to uncover the story of a man who reshaped Italy and left an indelible and controversial mark on world history, Benito Mussolini. How did a one-time socialist journalist become Europe's first fascist dictator? A figure who would inspire others and ultimately lead his nation into catastrophic conflict. Let's find out. Benito Andrea Mussolini was born in 1883 in a small town in northern Italy. His father, a blacksmith with strong socialist beliefs, and his mother, a devout Catholic schoolteacher, represented the conflicting ideologies that would battle within Mussolini himself. Young Benito was rebellious and intelligent. He qualified as a school teacher but found the profession dull. His real passion was politics and journalism. He moved to Switzerland to avoid military service, immersing himself in socialist circles. He became a fiery journalist, known for his powerful writing and charismatic public speaking. His articles were radical, anti-capitalist, and anti-clerical. He was arrested multiple times for his political agitation. This early part of his life is fascinating because it seems so at odds with what he would become. He was a rising star in the Italian Socialist Party, even becoming the editor of its official newspaper, *Avanti, which means forward in Italian. Then everything changed. In 1914, World War I erupted. The Socialist Party's official stance was neutrality. Italy should stay out of the conflict. Mussolini, however, had a dramatic change of heart. He came to believe that the war was a revolutionary opportunity, a chance to topple old monarchies and create a new Europe. He began writing articles urging Italy to join the war on the side of Britain and France. This put him in direct opposition to his party. He was expelled from the Socialist Party, a moment that defined the rest of his life. He famously shouted, "You hate me because you still love me." He didn't waste a moment. He started his own newspaper, Il Popolo d'Italia, or The People of Italy, funded by businesses who also wanted Italy in the war. When Italy did enter the war in 1915, Mussolini enlisted and served on the front lines. He was a corporal and fought with distinction until he was seriously wounded by a mortar explosion in 1917. This wartime experience was crucial. It solidified his intense nationalism and his belief in the power of action and violence over parliamentary debate. He saw the camaraderie and discipline of the trenches as a model for a new society. After the war, Italy was in chaos. The promises made by the Allies hadn't fully materialized. The economy was in ruins, unemployment was rampant, and there was widespread social unrest. People feared a communist revolution, similar to what had just happened in Russia. This atmosphere of fear and national humiliation was the fertile ground Mussolini needed. In 1919, in a square in Milan, he founded the Fasci Italiani di Combattimento the Italian Combat Leagues. This was the birth of the fascist movement. Initially, it was a strange mix of radical left-wing and right-wing ideas, but it quickly shed its leftist roots. Its core tenets became aggressive nationalism, anti-communism, a belief in a strong, authoritarian leader, and the use of violence to achieve political goals. His followers, known as the Black Shirts for their distinctive uniforms, were mostly disgruntled war veterans and young nationalists. They formed squads that would roam the streets, breaking up socialist strikes, intimidating political opponents, and attacking rival newspaper offices. While the government was weak and indecisive, the Black Shirts presented themselves as the only force capable of restoring order to Italy. They gained the quiet support of many landowners, industrialists, and even members of the police and military, who saw them as a useful tool against the left. By 1922, the fascist movement had grown powerful. Mussolini felt the time was right to seize power. In October, he orchestrated the March on Rome. Tens of thousands of black shirts from all over Italy converged on the capital. It was more of a theatrical bluff than a real military takeover. Mussolini himself waited safely in Milan, ready to flee if it failed. But the bluff worked. King Victor Emmanuel III, fearing a civil war and misjudging Mussolini's ambition, refused to authorize the army to disperse the blackshirts. Instead, he caved. He invited Mussolini to Rome and, on October 31, 1922, appointed him prime minister. At just 39 years old, without a majority in parliament, Mussolini had become the leader of Italy. For the first few years, he maintained the illusion of a democracy. He governed in a coalition and respected on the surface the parliamentary system. But behind the scenes, he was systematically consolidating his power. He created a fascist militia loyal only to him, passed laws that gave him more authority, and used intimidation to silence anyone who dared to speak out. The turning point came in 1924. A prominent socialist politician, Giacomo Matteotti, gave a brave speech in Parliament, denouncing the fascists for using fraud and violence in the recent election. 11 days later, he was kidnapped and murdered by fascist thugs. The crime sparked a national outrage. For a moment, it looked like Mussolini's government might fall. But his opponents were divided, and the king continued to support him. In a pivotal speech in January 1925, Mussolini dropped the pretense. He took full responsibility for the violence and chaos, effectively daring his opponents to stop him. When they couldn't, the path was clear. Within 2 years, all other political parties were outlawed, freedom of the press was abolished, and a secret police force was established. Mussolini was no longer prime minister. He was il duce, the leader. Italy was now a one-party totalitarian state. As il duce, Mussolini embarked on ambitious public works projects. He drained marshes, built new towns, highways, and stadiums. He promoted an image of efficiency, famously boasting that he made the trains run on time. This was part of a massive propaganda campaign to build a cult of personality around himself. Posters of his stern, jaw-jutting face were everywhere. Newsreels showed him as a dynamic man of action, harvesting grain, flying planes, and reviewing troops. He wanted to forge a new, disciplined, and warlike Italian people, harking back to the glory of the Roman Empire. But this new empire needed to expand. In 1935, Mussolini ordered the invasion of Ethiopia. The Italian military used brutal tactics, including poison gas, against a mostly defenseless population. The invasion was condemned by the League of Nations, but the sanctions they imposed were weak and ineffective. This pushed Mussolini away from Britain and France and into the arms of another rising dictator, Adolf Hitler in Germany. Initially, Mussolini was wary of Hitler, but they shared a common ideology and a common enemy in the Western democracies. They formed the Pact of Steel, a military alliance that bound their fates together. Mussolini, caught up in Hitler's momentum, adopted his own anti-Semitic laws in Italy, stripping Jewish citizens of their rights and property, a shameful act that remains a dark stain on his legacy. When Hitler invaded Poland in 1939, starting World War II, Mussolini was hesitant. He knew Italy's military was not ready for a major war. But as Germany achieved stunning victories in 1940, Mussolini feared being left out of the spoils. He declared war on France and Britain, a decision he called a stab in the back that would prove to be his undoing. Italy's war effort was a disaster from the start. Invasions of Greece and North Africa failed miserably, requiring German bailouts. The Italian army was poorly equipped and poorly led. By 1943, the Allies had invaded Sicily. The Italian people were fed up with the war and the dictatorship. In a stunning move, the Fascist Grand Council, Mussolini's own inner circle, voted to remove him from power. He was arrested the next day by order of the king. His 21-year rule was over. But the story doesn't end there. 2 months later, in a daring raid, German commandos rescued Mussolini from his mountain prison. Hitler installed him as the puppet leader of a new fascist state in northern Italy, which was still occupied by the Germans. He was now a shadow of his former self, a pawn in Hitler's game. As the Allies advanced up the Italian peninsula in the spring of 1945, Mussolini tried to escape to Switzerland with his mistress, Clara Petacci. They were captured near Lake Como by Italian anti-fascist partisans. On April 28, 1945, they were executed. Their bodies were taken to Milan and hung upside down in a public square, a grim and brutal end for the man who had ruled Italy with an iron fist for 2 decades. Mussolini's legacy is complex and deeply controversial. He was a pioneer of populism, a master of propaganda, and the architect of fascism, an ideology that caused immense suffering. He modernized parts of Italy but at the cost of freedom and human lives, ultimately leading his country into devastating war. His story is a powerful and sobering reminder of how a charismatic leader can exploit national pride and fear to seize power, and the catastrophic consequences that can follow. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the life of Benito Mussolini. If you found this video informative, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical journey. Let me know in the comments who you'd like to see me cover next. Until then, stay curious.